Hi everyone. I thought it might be helpful to see it worked out in the interactive textbook for the amortization, just to kind of give you a visual going through this. I went ahead and I organized it just like you see in the interactive textbook. Well, I guess not just like. There's a couple of little things like I think they have the cell. I think these two have an underline right there. Anyway, and I put in one extra thing. I put n, which is the number of times it's compounded, or in this case, because I'm working with a monthly payment, 12. That was just to prevent having to type that in over and over. It's a lazy way. The next thing I just wanted to work through was just how to find that payment that you've already done before, but just to work through it. Again, to make Excel calculate or work with a function, we're going to do equal sign, and then I'm going to tell it which function I want, and I want the PMT or payment, and then it prompts me as I go along, which is really convenient. I need the rate, so I one left click to cell reference the rate, and again, divide by, and I can type in 12 or do my lazy way, which is just to type in 12 and then cell reference it. Then close or comma to move to the next item, the next input or condition that we're working with. This is number of periods, and I have 12 per year. So again, I'm just going to cell reference this, unlike the interactive textbook, which types it in. It's just a preference thing. And then I'm going to multiply it by years, and that's the number of periods that you'll be making the payment over. The present value or the loan amount will be here, one left click, and okay. Again, like in the previous tutorials, you can close your parenthesis or you can just leave it because Excel has enough. If you're not okay leaving it, go ahead and close it. It'll make you feel more comfortable. The future value and the type we're not working with in this one. You could put future value. I want my payment or I want my loan to come down to a 0. That's fine. You can do that. And the type just references whether you're making the payment at the beginning or the end of the year. Don't worry about that in this case. So we're just going to end it here. Now you'll notice up here I left this blank. In the interactive textbook, they have typed in 92.08. If we were to, just out of curiosity, come up to the decimals here, and now it is currency and it's showing that it's negative because it's something coming out of your account, just for your sake to see it is not exactly 98.0 or 92.08. Now the reason I'm showing that is because if we round this to 92.08, it actually won't zero out at the very end of all the payments. So because there's just that tiny bit extra. So instead of typing up here 92.08, I'm actually going to cell reference this over here because it does have that tiny bit extra on there. And if I cell reference, it eliminates any rounding. But I actually want this to be a positive value as I start moving through the amortization over here on this side. So I'm going to just cell reference this, but to make it positive, I'm going to do negative, cell reference, then press enter. Now it looks like it's being rounded, but it's not. Again, this one, because we cell referenced, if you, oops, this direction, you'll see there's lots more there. And there we go. So it looks like I'm rounding to the nearest cent, but I do have a lot of extra on there. Okay, so to set this up, I'm doing it a little different than the interactive textbook, just my own preferences. Instead of doing this whole first row first, I'm actually going to put in the months because I'm going to show you a kind of cool trick here. I want the first month to be 1, then I can do 2, 3. I can type those in, or I can do a formula, which is equals the month previous, and then push shift equal sign, which is the addition, or if you have a keypad on or your 10 key with a full-size keyboard, those of you who don't have a laptop will have one of those, and add 1. And this will take the previous cell and add 1. Another tip here is that Microsoft Excel does often recognize patterns. So I could just do 1, 2, 3, and then highlight a couple of these and it'll see, or even just two, and it'll see that I'm adding one and automatically make that formula for you. I probably shouldn't teach you that, but I am. Either way, that you do this, now we're going to go down to the very last at the end of this, which will be 5 times 12, the years times the amount of times, which is 60. So I have 60 months here. If you're not comfortable with that, you can come up and just make sure that you do 5 times 12 just to make sure. Okay, the beginning balance, we're going to do equals the loan amount. In the interactive textbook, it tells you to go ahead and absolute cell reference this. I'm actually not going to do anything with this one except put it there, so I'm not going to absolute cell reference because I'm not going to click and drag that anywhere. I just want it to be an that's just referencing that cell. All right, the interest will be equals my 4%. And this one I am going to do something with later. So with absolute cell referencing, I can just go in and type in here or in here, whichever one, and type in Shift 4 to get a dollar sign. The dollar sign in front of the B says that I'm going to be absolutely referencing column B. Then the Shift F4 dollar sign in front of the 4 will say that I'm absolutely referencing row 4, and doing both at the same time references the cell row B or column B, row 4. Or the fast way, those of you who have a PC, press F4. Those of you who have a Mac, press function F4 and it types it in for you. If you go through that several times, you'll see that it moves the variation of the absolute cell reference, or referencing the row, just the column, or nothing, or both. Okay, again, because I went the lazy route, I have this 12 here. If you want to type in 12, that's fine. It's totally up to you. If you do the cell reference, though, again, we're going to have to do an absolute cell reference so that it will always reference this cell right here with the 12. Now we need to multiply this by the balance over here because that's what I'm paying interest on. Pressing enter will give me how much money. Oh, and again, I believe I just already went through all of this and formatted this to be an accounting number. If you would like to do that in advance, or you can do it afterwards, it doesn't really matter. All right, now that you know exactly how much interest you're going to be paying on that $5,000, the $16, the leftover of your payment from this $92 goes towards the principal. Now, again, because I cell referenced this, it's going to be just slightly different than typing in 92.08. And I'm going to click here again because this will always be the payment that I'm calculating with. I want this one to be an absolute cell reference. So F4 for PC users, or function F4 for Mac users. And then I'm going to subtract whatever amount from this payment went towards the interest. And that will tell me how much went towards the principal, which will give me the ending balance. So I take how much money is in my loan and subtract how much went towards the principal, and that will tell me how much came off that first balance, or that first payment. Now down here, because I've taken off some money, this beginning balance changes to what I ended in the last month. So I'm going to press equals and reference this one. I do not want to do an absolute cell reference because I want that ending balance to change every month with me as I click and drag to go through the full 60 months for this amortization schedule. So do not cell reference that one. Again, I did not want to cell reference or absolute cell reference this balance over here, the E5, because this, I want it to change as well. As I drag this down, I need it to reference the beginning balance so that it continues to decrease how much interest I'm paying on the loan. Let's just double check this guy. Yep, I absolute cell referenced this, and I don't want to absolute cell reference the interest. I want to keep it just to follow along with me as I click and drag, because this interest is going to change every month as well. In fact, if I click here and go down, you'll see it went down a little bit, just a couple of cents, because I'm referencing this smaller number, not much smaller, but it's still smaller, and it's going to add up to be little bits that make it end up being 0. Again, here with the principal, you'll see it changes just a little bit. And here, because I didn't absolute cell reference, I need this to come down with me each time as I go. The beginning balance minus the principal will end up with this end balance over here, which continues to decrease. But you'll see this one, that's good. Okay, so this second row has everything correct. I've cell referenced the end balance from the previous month, the interest, the principal, and the ending balance. That's all good. And we can highlight those. One left click and hold it down as you highlight all of those. We can check it out. It looks like everything's working. I can double check in here. Yep, I'm getting the ending balance. Press enter to get out of that cell once you've double clicked to see the function that's going on in there. So, because if you accidentally click out here, it'll start referencing other cells. Just kind of a nice little trick to make sure that you don't do when you're inside that function. It looks like I'm absolute cell referencing the interest rate and the N, unless you want to type in 12, and that's up to you. Those are good. Double check this. Yep, I'm referencing this and the interest, and that's dragging with me, and this one's staying, so everything is looking good. So I can, at this point here, because I've shown Excel that I'm only going to go out to 60, I could click and drag this down to 60 if I want, but when I get into larger ones, it makes it actually kind of nice to come down into this bottom right hand corner, get your crosshairs, and just double click. Oops. If we only have this one and we know everything's good, go to the very bottom one, or this one if you want to go to the bottom one here. Either way, double click and it fills it in all the way to the bottom, and you'll notice it comes out as 0 here. If I were to have kept this without cell referencing and just typed in 92.08, just quick to show you, it did change these just slightly enough that it won't actually zero out, because I've rounded just a little bit and it ends up with 17 cents. So I'm going to press Control Z so that we're actually referencing that entire amount instead of rounding. I hope that helped you with the interactive textbook on setting up your amortization schedule.